So welcome everyone. My name is Ian Chalmers, and I am a designer, not a data scientist, and the founder of Design Meets and Pivot Design Group here in Toronto. In an important step to truth and reconciliation, and as a member of Canadian society, we acknowledge the traditional lands that our studio occupies. We're grateful for these lands and have great respect for the recognition of Indigenous peoples, their practices and ways of knowing. We're committed to the task of building respectful relationships and practicing reconciliation in our everyday lives. Our path forward is together. Since we started back in 2010, Design Meets was a real community event. It was an in-person event. It was at the bar, it was at Mars, it was at McLuhan's Coach House, it was at Sidewalk Labs. And we miss those days, of course, but we're going to get through this and we'll be back in person, I hope, in 2022. But we've been fortunate enough to have a few events this year to get inspired, to collaborate with one another, and to look at the way design has this sort of power to transform our work. At our last event in June, we looked at design after the pandemic, which seemed like a novelty. What comes next? And I think we're still asking. You know, I'm sure everyone would agree if you did attend that event that it was lively and that our work lives are definitely going to change. Hopefully, though, when this is behind us, you know, the things that we've adopted, the things that have helped us change to improve, such as technology, has, you know, defined new features in our lives. So as design people, as creatives, as people who participate in these types of events, you know, our industry is changing at a rate that we're tied to with these developments. And it's only going to happen faster. It's going to get stronger for better and for worse. So we've got to help to find balance in these two. Our design has to adapt to this changing world, and different models of working, staying creative, collaborating in new ways, are constantly sort of reinventing our design practice and our design lives. On top of that, there's also the matter of circularity and many benefits that have been gained by the working from home trend. And the design for our ecology needs to be top of mind. So we're watching this evolution of our profession play out before our very eyes. For more information on that past event, please visit designmeets.ca. So artificial intelligence. This pandemic has definitely meant an acceleration in understanding and learning, in the growth of artificial intelligence in our lives, for better, for worse, for what we can see, for what we can't see. AI is a term that we hear a lot, with promises of doing sort of a number of things better than us humans. Whether this turns out to be true or not, the impact of AI on design is certain to be profound. As designers, we need to evolve from the tactical mentality that we've always sort of been embedded and have worked around, to evolve, to pivot our careers, to be more strategic, to have a mindset that we can bring human and creative element together into that picture. How will design, and this is the big question for today, how will design respond to this accelerated tech and the explosion of AI? How is AI impacting us, let's say our community? How is it impacting designers, and how should we design for AI experiences and interactions? Things like voice, you know, visuals, gestures, and even invisible interfaces. How do we consider ethics and algorithms? How can we sit side by side with data scientists to find the right balance of informed AI systems? And will our role move from creator to curator? All this and more in the next hour. We have 3 presenters today. I'm very excited about who has joined us, volunteered their lunchtime, and we're going to share their perspectives on AI and design for 5 minutes each. We'll have a Q&A period after the 3 speakers finish, and we encourage any questions to be posted in the chat. Thank you so much. There's a great, thank you for all these chats. Wow, there's somebody from Perth, Australia. Thanks for joining us. Good day. All right, so I am going to introduce our speakers, whom you can see in the backgrounds. This is sort of our common environment, so everybody should be used to looking at little tiny pictures of ourselves. I'm going to introduce each speaker, and they will present. And then after that, I'll introduce the next speaker. So I'll just read a short bio of each person. And hey, speakers, if I get anything wrong, please correct me. So up first to present in her 5 minutes is Chloe Benaroya. She is an innovation and human-centered design coach who has worked in digital platform development, educational games, and apps over the past 20 years. Previously VP UX research and design for Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, an educational publisher. Chloe currently works at Manulife Innovation and UX Lab in Montreal. While not working, I want to learn more about this Chloe. Chloe loves trekking, especially in deserts, always waiting for the next opportunity, and works hard to be an acceptable gardener. So much we need to learn about Chloe here. So Chloe, over to you to share your screen.
So thank you for having me. As Ian said, I am an HED, so human-centered design and innovation coach. I'm working as a consultant, and also I'm working during my daily on my daily task at Manulife. I'm representing myself today, not representing Manulife, just to be clear. So when I've done a lot of interactive design, instructional design, and I also led multidisciplinary teams. And when I sit with teams and there is a connection with AI, I always feel a kind of, it's still very intimidating. I think that AI is not, the word AI is not helping. It's really a very big word. And personally, in my experience, in the type of project that I do, I prefer smart automation or intelligent augmented intelligence. It's need more space to for people to kind of reason and fit in a way. What I wanted to show you is maybe just example of something that is really a small AI project, but where I think it shows and illustrates the role of designers. And this is designing with NLP, so natural language processing. And that's basically the form of AI that is used for voice activity apps or chatbot or smart adaptive FAQs sometimes. And nowadays, NLP tools can be really using without any coding. So it's not about really software, it's really how to design it. So just wanted to go through very quick step and show how design work in there. So the first thing is obviously to building value as for any project, defining what is this new service, if it's a voice activity service, what is a benefit for the customer, the company, the staff, and also what is a scope and what type of request these apps will request and handle. And obviously that's something that the designer are really involved in and used to do, define value leveraging human-centered design techniques, but also designing the database, the knowledge database that you will build on the interaction. And that, I think that designer can participate through service mapping or process mapping into building the knowledge database, how it would gather information, how it could be modified over time to stay relevant. So that's in that piece, designer as a role. And now I am more into understanding context. So that means what will be the user, what will the user expect, and how they will formulate their question to get the expected outcome. So really understanding their mental model and how they will ask the question. It's not that easy, in fact. With really the user, is it just one person in a room or multiple person, like a family could be interacting with differently, or might formulate the question differently, things like that. So again, in this step, exploratory user research is really key to define the context, and that's a designer task as well. So here again, I think that designer are really relevant. And so the next step is really defining and working on the interaction per se, working with your NLP tool. And there is always limitation, the number of I mean, the size, the memory, the number of way you want to ask for the question, and it's always built on, what are the intents. So the instruction are understanding the kind of the signified and the triggers. That could be the word, or that could be sentences, or that could be kind of multi-turn exchanges, and you have to design that as well. And also the parameter, like if you say, what is the weather today, that assume that the machine understand what today's mean, and also where you are, maybe with the localization, a GPS or something like that. Whereas if you say, what is the weather in Ottawa on October 13, that's a different type of experience. And once again, designer are kind of key and center in that, collaborating with the rest of the team. And lastly, testing interaction, building usability testing scenarios, monitoring how the NLP system will improve over time and making change, and always questioning, the way we work with technology. So, for example, maybe translating or adapting a service from English for French, for example, what I had to do doesn't mean just loading all the French parts, because, well, we are here in Canada, so the French French Canadian is completely different from French for start, so for the accent perspective. But also we have a lot of mixed couple, and they start a sentence in French and they finish it in English, and the technology is not necessarily made for that. So pushing the envelope and looking from the user perspective is always a good way to challenge the technology and push the envelope a little bit further and improve overall the whole system. So I just wanted to go through that. Of course, I am HED, practitioner. So for me, human-centered design skills are always really key for any type of solution, and also to design AI-based solution. Always bringing this conversation between technology, kind of business, and human values. So that's what I wanted to share today as an introduction.
That's great. Thank you, Chloe. Excellent. We'll have lots to talk about afterwards. All right, Fanny, looks like you're up next.
Sure.
Let me just, a little introduction. Fanny's here because she's someone that I know who works particularly in healthcare, and I feel that healthcare is one place in AI that we've demonstrated all the positive things that can happen with the application of that science. So Fanny's the head of artificial intelligence and digital health at Hoffman Roche. Fanny's experiences cover the public and private multi-stakeholder space, delivering new products and services to healthcare markets, both locally and globally. Fanny brings expertise as a clinician, a researcher, and business development professional. Wow, very impressive. To the area of medical devices, AI, analytics, and digital health assets. Fanny's mission is to contribute to people's growth and giving back to the community so people can live their best lives. And she does this through her practice of yoga, right? And mindfulness and being in the present. So speaking of the present, ta-da, here you are.
Thanks,
over to you. Feel free to share your screen.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with everybody today. I'm always so interested in these particular forums because I think design is so imperative to us being able to provide applications of science into the world, right? Because if we get into all the jargon and all the technical applications of things, we may not actually get to a product that is able to affect people's lives, that is able to make health benefits available to our population. So design is always very important to me. So thank you for letting me be part of this forum. Maybe I can tell you a little bit about what Roche is up to. And so what I'll do is I'll just put it into slideshow mode. And so today I want to talk to you a little bit about building interactions, and we may not necessarily have the same expertise in terms of product development from a user experience perspective within our team, but it's very much about building the proper interactions between different disciplines such that they can make the most of academic invention and translate that into market products. And so this may seem like something that is highly intuitive, but at times it requires a lot of, dissolving of silos between different domains. And that includes between ML scientists and those who actually apply it in the clinic, such as HCPs or allied health professionals, or those who are in the business of delivering new products and services. And so I'll talk a little bit about Roche's transformation. So it's no longer a pharma company, it's transformed into something else. I'll talk about, how we have really focused on user experience, which is really focusing on the patient journey. Everything from when they wake up in the morning to what they do in their daily activities to the events that they participate in order to manage their healthcare. I'll talk about COVID because that is of the time, and I really believe that it catalyzed us 10 years into the future. I'll talk about our Roche Data Science Coalition, which is really about open data science and how we are trying to architect the operational model of our public and private partnerships through developing open innovation models and then taking those outputs and translating them into the environment for public good. So pharma is no longer a pharma company. So Roche, we are no longer a pharma company. We are in the business of health solutions. And what that means is that we will traverse the entire patient journey in terms of our ability to provide impact. Where we normally focused on treatment and diagnosis, we are now into everything from prevention to survivorship to end-of-life care. So as you can see, this is the classic patient journey with the very defined roles or activities that happen during a person's lifetime. We are typically in diagnosis and treatment, but now we're getting involved in things like diet, potentially transport, potentially being involved in fitness and sleep. Those are the things that we define as the social determinants of health and are also important in terms of determining our overall wellness. So when we think of, what's happened in the last 2 years, we think companies are always talking about digital transformation. What is digital transformation? Who has led digital transformation in a company? And this I found was such an interesting multiple choice. I found it on Facebook, of course. And it was like, was your CEO the one responsible for this? Was it your CTO or was it COVID-19? And I think most companies can now say it really was COVID-19 because we were forced to do things in a digital manner because we had no other alternative. So we really catapulted digital health into the future. And so as part of our advent into trying to make the world a better place and try to answer market needs during COVID, we created something called the Roche Data Science Coalition, where we brought together public and private organizations such that we could make open data available and that solutioners could essentially create solutions for the environment, whether they be for the general public, healthcare practitioners, or for governments in Canada and throughout the globe to help them make decisions on their daily life, on social distancing policies. And we were able to inform pandemic task force tables to help inform social distancing policies during Ramadan in Pakistan, testing strategies in Ireland, and also reopening practices in Algeria. So, the very design of bringing different stakeholders together such that they are able to coordinate towards a common effort in a very focused manner was able to accelerate solutions to the market, where we were able to develop over 100 solutions in the form of advanced analytics, AI solutions, dashboards, reports, in about 4 to 8 weeks. So it goes to show you that if you align and you're able to coordinate various stakeholders towards a common goal, you're able to do this very quickly. So we use both population data sets and also individual data sets. So what we did as a result of this, we thought, I think we stumbled on some level of operating model where crowdsourcing was really for the benefit of the population, and that we could see further benefit in translating this model to other areas that we are interested from a therapeutic perspective. So we created the AI Center of Excellence. So it's called the One Roche AI Center of Excellence, which is recently branded as AI with Roche. And thanks to Ian, we have a wonderful brand and a wonderful website to help us express, our mission and mandate in the world. And we are now called AIR. So AIR is a collaboration with our Pan AI institutes that include Amy, Mila, and Vector. They house some of the world's greatest AI scientists and give rise to, and were started by academic luminaries such as Jeffrey Hinton, Yoshua Bengio, and Richard Sutton, who are luminaries in reinforcement learning as well as godfathers of deep learning. And so we're very proud to live on this soil and to be able to focus these efforts towards healthcare challenges that can not only be used to solve problems within Canada nationally, but also to be leveraged to other countries around the globe. So, why are we doing this? Why is this so important to bring so many different stakeholders to the table at one point to really solve challenges? It's because healthcare in itself is a multi-sectoral, multidisciplinary effort where this ultimate alignment allows for healthcare solutions to reach the market in an accelerated way. For any healthcare solution, you require patients' input, HCPs, infrastructure players, telecom, institutional players, government, to be able to be at the table to ensure the safety and security of the deployment of these particular technologies. So that's why these particular forums are important. And so this is where the design piece comes in, and hopefully where we can become relevant in this conversation. We're really designing a way for people to behave and interact with one another such that we are able to accelerate discovery and at the same time able to translate it to products, services in the market, policies, protocols, such that we can get the technologies that really work to patients faster. And our strategic pillars are in this particular area. We are continuing to extend our work in COVID. We are also very much present in the neurospace in the areas of autism and Alzheimer's, also rare condition, and of course our priority portfolio, which is oncology. So that completes my presentation. I hope that wasn't too long, but I wanted to give everybody a feel for the type of work that we're doing.
Oh, that's great, Fanny. It's nice that you included a picture of your team there also, which is the way we see each other today. So it's that's a very authentic photo because I've met some of those folks there. So thank you for sharing that. I mean, you've shared a real application in the world that is relatable at least. And maybe after Mickey, we can have a conversation about how does design get a seat at the table? Because I think you've mentioned that a few times about having that sort of input. So anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, Mickey is up next. So Mickey Arai currently leads a team of designers in information design, Omnia AI, Deloitte Canada's AI practice. She focuses on strategic information design, data visualization, and UX design. She brings a user-centered design lens to solve complex challenges at the intersection of business, data, and technology. With extensive experience in design agencies, Mickey has successfully led impactful design projects ranging from digital application interfaces and website design, reporting to brand communication, collateral design for clients from a variety of industries. And when she's not working, Mickey is a food nerd apparently, and enjoys meditating by painting abstract shapes and colors. We should just have you doing that, actually. We'll lead one on meditation. I love that. Anyway, over to you, Mickey.
All right, thank you, Ian, for the introduction. Let me just share my screen. Okay, so thanks for the introduction. My name is Mickey Arai, and I lead a team of designers at the Omnia AI, Deloitte's Canada's AI practice. I know you may be wondering, what is this picture doing here? And I just wanted to bring a little bit of humor in a conversation as well. And because we see use of AI more and more in daily lives, and from movie recommendations to, picking the right investment, and then feels like our lives being changed forever with the rise of AI. But then the thing is that like regular people like us, like me, myself as well included, it is still a mystery that how the data has been collected, what kind of data has been collected, how the data has been used, and also how does this actually work. And I feel that this picture kind of resonates, that kind of sentiment around AI's capability. This is kind of a joke, kind of a meme that describes the difficulty of AI picking out the kind of AI image recognition model, picking up the right image. I mean, for us as the humans, picking up oh, here's a cat, here's a dog, here's a plant. It's easy task, but the AI, in the process of building AI, it has a learning process. You need to have the right teaching, learning data sets and things like that. There's a lot of obstacle there. That's what I learned from, great data science folks at the Deloitte. And I thought that was pretty funny. Who doesn't love a cat picture, right? To look at. So wanted to kind of summarize that sort of sentiment of the AI and what is also our designers' role in building AI solutions. And building AI doesn't, it does always involves in data, but also involves in humans as well. So in our practice at Omnia, as a design perspective, because the building AI requires a human input and also requires the always the human interfacing layer at the end of the solution. So our focus is mainly around how the data is presented and consumed by the humans. So our kind of practice, our process involves from user-centered design thinking or / human-centered design thinking, UX and UI design, and information design and data visualization in order to help AI solution and making the AI solution be friendly to the humans. So that's the kind of a practice that we do, and a little bit different. And I'm coming from a traditional sort of graphic design background, but then pivoted my career into this tech world. And I wanted to talk about today what is the role as a designer in building AI solutions. So the first role would be we become an interpreter. And looking at a picture here, you see, the data is out there. There's a lot of data. The data is being kind of collected, sorted, and arranged. And we have very talented data scientists, data engineers, and analysts doing that job. And from that point, and as I mentioned, it always needs human interfacing layer. So we become an interpreter, and we collect data, sorted, arranged, and we still need that sort of human interfacing layer. So as a designer, I think we can facilitate the process with data, because we're after all, like that data being arranged needs to be presented visually or presented in some ways, and also in some cases explained with a story. And also, there are always actionable insights that are driven by data, and that has to be kind of presented and understood by the humans. So by becoming an interpreter, we can translate this complex data models and into more relatable, tangible, accessible outputs, whatever the outputs would be. I think there is a great role as a designer to bridge that gap between that sort of data outputs to interfacing layer. And second one would be we can help define the purpose. And I work with the wonderful, talented data scientists and data analysts, data engineers, and there's always great use cases of AI. And I also, this morning, I jumped off the call and it was really brilliant kind of use case of AI. But it's also, easy to jump into solutioning. Oh, here's a great model we could do. Let's roll it out. But it's always good to step back and look at the actual purpose. And as a designer, for us, it's having the creative brief or design brief, defining problem statement, explaining why are we doing this, who is this for, and what is this for, and how does it going to work. Those questions are coming into very handy when we talk to technical folks and talking about solutioning. We can tap into those questions, unpack a little bit more. And because also not coming from technical perspective, bring in a fresh eye to think through a little bit in a different lens. So that kind of synergy can prevent creating solutions for technology's sake. So, I mean, that picture here as kind of epitomizes a little bit of that. It could be a very simple solution problem, but then, technical folks tend to bring into over-engineered thinking. So we can always work together to define the purpose and also the target end users as well. So that, which is leading to my next step and next role, which Chloe also mentioned. And I'm so happy to see that little Venn diagram that Chloe brought it up. Talking about innovation sweet spot, and you may have seen this diagram everywhere on the internet. We look at the problem from different three lenses: desirability, so empathetic lens to emphasize the end user needs, and viability, meaning that is a business lens to align economic benefit. Does it make sense from economic perspective? Does it make money? We have to keep the lights on, we need that money to keep our lights on. So economic value is a super important part of it. And also another part would be, can we do this? Feasibility perspective. We have a great idea, but if we can't do it technically, it's not going to work out. So from a design perspective, we usually start from the desirability, user needs to define what is desirable. Do we want this kind of idea, solutions, that? And then we typically hold workshops together from a business side and technical side. And then, we work things out to arrive at the sweet spot. So that's the kind of the role that we play to collaborate and kind of bring the synergy from different three lenses. And then last piece, since I was trained graphic design and visual communication, and I understand there are other sort of components, NLP and stuff like that is beyond the visual aspect of it. But then there are some, most of the outputs that were produced has a visual components that interface with the humans. And when you look at the interesting stats, about 65% of population is visual learners, and 90% of information processed in our brain is visual. So it's super important to pay close attention to visual components as an output. And with my experience, it's easier and faster to process visual-based information compared to just a text. What I have brought a picture here is the few years ago, Wired magazine kind of had this interesting sort of build case that comparing to the blood results. And this is kind of a typical blood result you see on a paper. What if we could re-visualize this to a more user-friendly way so that the audience, the consumer of the information easily see what you're looking at. So good UI design makes actionable insights more accessible to make better decisions. And leading up to this point, in order for us to be able to make good user interface layer, we need to really truly understand the user needs and a purpose. So previous two slides that I was talking about, the process of leading up to it is super important. So as a designer, we always fight for that kind of process of understanding the core needs and the user's desirability, and understand also the data, what data we are bringing in, and then also, focusing on how we can present it to the target users and audiences. So that's about it from my presentation.
That's great. Thank you, Mickey.
No problem.
Clear purpose, process, all these important ideas where design plays a critical role. This brings us sort of to our question Q&A. We will take questions if anyone has any of the speakers. And I know, Chloe, we had, I shared a couple of questions. I know there was one that you felt attached to a little bit, where we talked about, what is the evolving role of the designer? And we've kind of gotten into it a little bit as it relates to this sort of intelligence into this design of information. How should we partner? Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, the first thing is, I guess, design roles have always evolved, right? It's not something that is necessarily fixed. We evolve as a technology has evolved. So I think we shouldn't be afraid of evolving in general. I guess the more complex it gets, the more need we have to kind of clarify and decompose things and make things clear from the user perspective and from the human perspective. So I think it's really important. And also, I think it's up to us to decide if we want to include AI tools for designer or not, and to what extent we want to use them. For example, if you're taking, usability testing software, there are more and more interesting things to do, like recognition, like speech recognition. You interview people, you get the script right away, and then it's up to us to decide if we want to use it or not. Personally, I was in a user interview like yesterday, and I told that I think it's great to use the technology, but then decide, but for the tagging part, I will do it myself. So it's up to us also to kind of answer our to the feedback and say, this is useful, this is not useful, and this is why. So I don't think we're passive into the, or seeing AI as a threat, but really as an opportunity to grow.
For sure. That's great. We do have a couple of questions. I'll read to everyone here. From Joseph. Increasingly, technology companies are attending to the ethical dimensions of AI and other data-driven products. Are any such initiatives happening in your own organizations? Anyone want to pick up on that one?
Sure, I'm happy to comment. I think it's particularly in healthcare. I mean, ethical issues are our #1 priority. We're dealing with people, and the software that we use or any of the AI algorithms may potentially help to determine a person's diagnosis or even their care plan. So those ethical considerations are utmost important, and we have people on our team and on staff to ensure that those types of considerations are taken with us throughout our entire development, all the way from concept to prototype to scaling to overall implementation. So we take that very seriously, and particularly in the areas of privacy and security. So yeah.
Excellent.
Same here as
Mickey.
well, Ian.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Mickey. Yeah.
Same here as well at Deloitte, that any data that we receive, and we have the risk assessment team as well. So any personal information should not be revealed, and we take extra care on sharing data. Those are the fundamental part of protecting privacy and mitigating any risk associated to collecting data, and then prototyping as well. So we don't, when we do prototyping in terms of, let's say, reporting, we don't really put the real numbers in there so that it protects the client's real data, but and then kind of have the security protocol in place. So I just wanted to chime in on that as well.
Fair enough. Well, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of us who don't work in the space, let's just say, have a very low latency understanding of what all this means, what we're sharing, what privacy we're opening up to security. I mean, we have devices in our lives that we constantly volunteer data and information without really seeing all the benefits that we could be partnering on more. And perhaps that'll come down the road. Question for Mickey. This is a good one because it speaks to the graphic design journey. What has your journey been like from graphic design to analytics, UX, and AI?
That's a great question. I guess, my journey started off the conventional graphic design. I worked at a studio where I worked with a lot of academics and a lot of interesting information thrown at me. And we did not have much budget to do something. So, and then kind of naturally, organically involved in understanding information. How can I show this information to the audience outside of academia? And that kind of led me to the analytics practice. And I have to be honest, I did not understand the data perspective at all. But the curiosity and talking to a lot of data folks and, kind of got interested in me. And analytics is the first step. And then our practice evolved from analytics to AI. It's a natural sort of organic growth in that sense. So, and then I think bringing into, starting off, okay, you understand like a graphic design fundamentals. But at the same time, when you want to deliver good design, you want to really get to the core of it, and you really want to understand the problem. So that kind of brought me into natural, like a growth and pivoting aspects to interested in human-centered design and design thinking, and now the UX, the term UX is exploding. But when I was again practicing, traditional graphic design did not exist there. So, take that as it comes in, and nobody's perfect, but curiosity and understanding of the others, and, always constantly thinking of what you can bring as a, person and contributing to the team work, that kind of been helping.
Mm-hmm. Great. Excellent. We have another one here. Great question. Chloe, this is one that resonate with you just from some of your earlier comments. What does user research and usability testing look like in big corporations? Do you have dedicated teams, and how often are they done? Because I know you had mentioned user research.
Yeah, so I speak in general. I would say yes, more and more user research and usability testing. In fact, there is. I think what could be challenging is the layer of information and data sets, and how to build on the convergence into looking at all these data. But yes, there is user research or exploratory user research this side of the project. There could be, testing prototype type of interview. There may be usability testing using, like tools for testing, again, either prototype or even versions, and iterating on that. It's really close to agile organization as well. So yes, in addition to that, there is some kind of existing other type of data, like market insight, market research, surveys, surveys that are just popping up in using specific tools, etc. So we have tons of data in general. I guess where you can see the maturity of organization is making sense of all this data in one piece. And I guess this is where I'm really interested in, is how we can build a kind of data-driven design, really having the data at the right moment, organized in the right way, so we see the light in all of this data point and not pick and choose, one or the other. So making it more coherent. So I say yes, there is tons of things going on. I see the maturity is more how to organize that and making sense of all of that data points.
Great. We have another great question here, and this might be one, Fanny, that from your experience you can speak to. How do we create ethical and non-discriminatory AI when they're being fed through human-gathered data, meaning through our biases and limitations?
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So okay, so I think that's a topic that everyone's talking about right now. If we're going to use AI algorithms, how do we ensure that the data sets that were used to create them don't have biases, right? Because if there are biases, the output of that particular algorithm may not be as precise because you're applying it to a different population. And I think the answer for us right now is really about transparency. If we're going to be able to use a particular algorithm in standard practice, particularly in medicine, we want to know the recipe in which it was made. We want to see the model, and we also want to see the data points. And then we should also be able to have another data set available to us to further validate that it is able to reach that particular precision that we believe it is efficacious in the clinic. So I think, the overall answer is transparency, no black boxes, and just being cognizant is important, right? Like, what is a bias and how does bias actually affect these types of algorithms and its potential use in the environment? So it's a good question. I don't think we have all the answers, but maybe design can help us.
Of course, design can. Yes.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, and I know you can see some of these questions, but Pete has a great question for everyone here. He leads a team in health services research in Toronto. There's plenty of research being done in how to design things like data visualizations for healthcare data, such as what Mickey shared, or patient-facing decision aids. But all this research is basically led by non-designers like me, like Pete, and we're all just stumbling around trying stuff and seeing what works. I know there's a significant space for design in healthcare. Yes, there is. And beyond just the visual I mentioned above, how do we get more real designers in the academic hospital side of healthcare? And this could be, anyone could speak to this, but I don't know, you might want to jump on that one quickly too, Fanny, and then Chloe.
So for our practice, I think, typically, for some reason, sometimes user design is an afterthought, and I don't know why. It seems to be this wrapper at the end, but we know the most usable and the technologies that are most effective and have the highest traction in terms of adoption are the ones that have the designers at the very beginning from conception, right? And then brought through prototype, and then brought through production. And we know that those iterations are important as greater user groups start to use and test these particular technologies. So I just think it has to be put right up front, and we're making an active effort to do so at Roche.
I couldn't agree more, Fanny. That's just great viewpoint. And I think the Fanny put in a very concise sort of format, saying that it's a wrapper on around. Design is not that. We really can bring value, bring us in from the beginning. We can try to understand, and also trying to kind of bring a synergy between different stakeholders and also different perspective. And then once you have built that foundation, that can kind of lead to more cohesive, more user-friendly kind of outputs. And I know that I'm talking really abstract terms, but a design is not just about the outside of it, but also inside. And at our practice as well, that we work together with the team of data scientists, team of data engineers, and kind of business strategists and people like that. But then we always try to kind of fight for synergy and a culture that it needs to change, right? So traditionally it is kind of siloed work, but slowly, and once we identified opportunity for growth, like in a place like healthcare, I did get involved in a lot of healthcare projects as well, and there is always a great synergy, and then working towards the patient journey, and how can we bring the visibility and into the actual target audience. So I feel like the opportunities are covered right now, but there are lots of opportunities for designers to involve, so that it makes a better, life much better.
That's great.
Yeah, maybe I can add something like a recommendation to Pete, because truly we're trying to talk about how designer can evolve, but I see that as an open collaboration as well. So if you're not coming from a designer background, you can still use human-centered design techniques to open up the dialogue and create like iteration of opening it up, understanding the user, So you don't necessarily need to be a designer to try to apply, these techniques. And as you go, you will have appetite for it, and say, well, we need professional to continue to do that. So that could be a one step as well. Is like, start with maybe user-centered design techniques, interviewing people, understanding to open up, and then you'll see that there is a whole world of opportunity there, and maybe a designer will be invited more into your work.
Excellent. We're getting near the end here. There are some fantastic questions here. Oh my gosh, we're going to have to put these into, we will have a summary of the video, and we'll have an article, and we'll answer some of these questions. There's a short one here that maybe each of you could just quickly answer. Any advice on how to jump from UX to AI? And then Fanny, you could say how to jump from AI to UX. Quick, really short.
Invite more multidisciplinary tables together. So always an AI scientist with designer every time you make something, always.
Right. Design researcher or designer, yep. Any comment, Mickey or Chloe, on the journey from how to get from where you were into AI? Or maybe you are where you are.
Jump in.
Jump in.
Jump in, do it.
That's true. Take a gamble. I mean, this event is, we don't have experience in this, but I know we need to have experience in this. We need to have a seat at the table, because I believe, the design process, design thinkers, design creative people can bring that aspect to informing and making it inclusive, and considering the ethics and looking at biases and all the things that need to be considered as part of that design process could really help data science be stronger and more human-centered. So I think we've heard it all here today, and I want to thank our speakers. Thank you to our speakers, Chloe, Mickey, Fanny. Thank you, Lauren from Pivot, for supporting the webinar and recording and everything else. Thank you to our audience for tuning in at lunchtime, taking your hour. You can go eat now. Again, it's been recorded, will be edited and posted in 2 weeks, and we'll send it out as a follow-up to your Eventbrite. Our next event is on design and the circular economy. Very, very important. How do we pivot to becoming, to build circular design into our processes, in addition to what we've talked about today? So don't miss that. And thank you again for taking part and joining us today. Thank you, everyone.